Hi everybody, welcome back to Deanne's POV podcast. My name is Deanne and I am so happy to have you guys here with me. So let's get into the episode. First off, I wanted to say that this is the first episode that I'm recording where my podcast is actually out, which is so crazy to me because I decided to pre-record some episodes that I wanted to record ahead of time because I was waiting for my cover art to come back, and I was just kind of working on small little details here and there, and to see it just all come together is really, really crazy and exciting, honestly. um so yeah. Okay, so to get into this episode, um so as we all know, it is that time. Fall is such a beautiful, magical time, but in additional to that, I feel it's also one of the most stressful times just in general because school is happening, people are working, and I don't know, I feel every fall things just start to pile up on each other, and it just gets hectic for some reason. um so yeah, so this episode is going to be about stress and how we can manage stress. So as we all know, feeling anxious and stressed out is common for everybody. Everybody experiences it to some extent, and there's so many factors that play into it. That could be external factors such as school, work, relationships, and there's also internal factors like things that we're dealing with. First off, I just wanted to kind of clear up what stress is, because I feel whenever I talk to anybody about stress, it's always in a negative connotation. So stress itself is a stimulus, so it's some form of a condition, so it's waiting for a response from us. So there's technically three different types of stressors. There's distress, which is negative stress. There's positive stress, and there's a neutral stress. We don't really talk about neutral stress because it really has no bother on us at all. So positive stress is actually so good for us. It allows us to create ambitions and goals and be go-getters, you know what I mean? So it motivates you and encourages you to continue on, while negative stress could lead to panic and anxiety. So when our body is introduced to a stressor, it goes through this biochemical pathway. So our adrenal gland, which releases cortisol and epinephrine. If you don't know what epinephrine is, it's adrenaline. And when those are released, it goes through these same biochemical pathways that is known as our fight or flight. So, and this is kind of a response to our sympathetic nervous system. So how does our body kind of prepare itself for a stressor? So our heart rate rises, it delivers oxygen faster throughout our body, your breath increases, your pupils dilate, and digestion slows down. And you're just kind of in this zone where you're just locked in, which is not a bad thing because it's good to be locked in and to just take things head on. Okay, so when does stress become bad for us? It doesn't matter the type of stressor because our body responds to it all in the same way. And a lot of the aftermath of stress is anxiety, memory loss, depression, cardiovascular disease. It could lead to so many detrimental things. But what leads to that in general? So from what I've learned and from what I've read, it's not the fact that we're addressing stress, you know what I mean? It's not the idea of us just we're gonna be addressing this stressor and this stressor. it's more about the duration of the stress. So it's prolonged stress that's not healthy for us. And I read this in a couple of papers, which I honestly didn't know myself. And when I read it, I'm like, oh, I need to like really focus on de-stressing and just like finding ways to manage my stress. And the paper was on how stress actually alters our brain. So it actually changes your brain structure, because when you're in this fight or flight state, it's like you are like your body is actually like, okay, like I'm at war in that sense. Or there's like always this example of like when you're getting chased by a tiger, like obviously you're scared, you're running for your life. So that's like the stressor. And I really like to use analogies like that because it's more clear cut, and it really just highlights how your body and your brain respond to every stressor the exact same way. Okay, so when your body is responding to a form of stress and you're constantly enduring stress, it kind of upkicks that biochemical pathway constantly. So you're just like overworking it in a sense. So our body and brain want to respond to prolonged stress. So to do that, it eventually causes your brain to adapt in a way that it redirects wiring to your amygdala, and it increases activity there while decreasing activity in your prefrontal cortex. So if you haven't heard this before, your amygdala is your fear center in your brain, so it keeps you on your toes, while your prefrontal cortex has the primary responsibility for decision making, regulating complex cognitive behavior, personality expression, and also like moderating social interactions. So your brain kind of picks and chooses. So if you're in this constant fear state, it's like putting a lot more energy there while also sacrificing something as well, which is less wiring in your prefrontal cortex. So it's kind of like adapting to the situation that you are in. And honestly, it's mind-boggling to think that stress can actually shrink your brain in size, and it's also like one of the main causes for like memory loss and like other diseases that I mentioned earlier in the long run. And I kind of like to think about what I can do today and reduce all illnesses and stuff in the future. And I've been just like taking smaller and smaller practices in my day-to-day life to do so. So why do we like kind of crave stressors? Like I feel like you know how like adrenaline junkies are portrayed, like they want to do like the craziest stunts and stuff. I feel like that's kind of all of us in a sense, because we pick different stressors. We're not going to go jump off a cliff and see what happens, but we're going to add more to our plate and just like try to find other stressors that is more tailored to us that we enjoy, and just like keep chasing that. And it's so crazy because I feel like me personally, I was addicted to stress in a way where it was like more academically centered, you know what I mean? Because like when I was like starting college, I was like, okay, how can I get as many hours like as I can? How much research can I do? Mentorship, this, that. Like I literally would have a jam-packed schedule, which was absolutely insane. And as time went on, obviously, like freshman, sophomore year, I realized how unhealthy it was for me. So I was like kind of like cutting back, and I was picking like easier projects that I can do that don't require a lot more energy in comparison to other things. Like when I worked as a clinical assistant, obviously I'm just going to be on game those 2 or 3 days I'm at the clinic, and then I'm going to be a full-time student doing research, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And it's funny because the reason why we are so addicted, oh my god, a butterfly. I honestly have been seeing butterflies everywhere, and I'm just like, I love it. Okay, I got sidetracked there. But the thing about stress is it's linked to our reward system in our brain. And the more you expose yourself to stress, the more it triggers the release of dopamine at the end. So So let me give you guys a quick example. This is more of a good stressor because working out is a good stressor. You always feel somewhat good after a workout. Okay, so running, for example, I used to be like a very consistent runner, and I really did like really enjoy running. I used to get like a runner's high. Then I took like 3 months off because I was like traveling and stuff. Um, and I haven't been like doing high intensive cardio like that, but I've been like trying to get back into it. And I swear to God, is the hardest thing ever. Like, at first, I hated it, and now I'm like kind of like enjoying it a little bit more, and I'm like meeting my goals. Like, I started off running a mile again, and now I'm up to 3 miles, and I'm like kind of getting that dopamine hit. But now, like, if I consistently run just 3 miles, I'm like, okay, like, I feel great, but then it's not as good as the first time. So, what do I have to do to kind of like get that exact same like dopamine hit I got after I ran the first mile day one? You know what I mean? Okay, so your brain will eventually adapt to the stressor because the longer you expose yourself to a specific stressor, the more it's like, okay, like this is something that we're going to do every day. So the more you expose it, the less and less dopamine release that there's going to be. So just like any other adrenaline junkie, we're going to go and look for a bigger stressor to get a dopamine hit and kind of just like kind of kickstart that reward system again. And that's kind of like what makes us addicted to stress, because like nobody actually wants to just be under stressful conditions without a some sort of without some sort of reward outcome. So that's why we even constantly go back and chase another stressor. And the good stressors will help you like level up and continue to grow, but it could also lead to bad stress in a sense, or it can convert to bad stress. And I feel like that just depends on how long you're putting yourself through it, and like the duration without any breaks. Because I feel like even like when you're at work, for example, and you're constantly just like work, 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 you're gonna end up crashing at the end and you're gonna feel so burnt out. And it's so funny because even like when so it's funny because even when I did have a lot on my plate, like my last year of um school, I was working as a research tech. I was working I was working as a research tech, and I had two mentorship groups plus another mentorship group that I was doing. And it was just like, okay, how can I like manage my day in a way where I feel good about myself? You know what I mean? Because like obviously like I'm going to feel accomplished at the end, but I don't want to feel tired. I don't want to feel like drowsy or just like sluggish in a way. And I feel like whenever I just like over stimulate myself in that way, I just like crash at the end. You know what I mean? And it's just like I end up hating what I'm doing. Um And it's funny because I didn't even realize how burnt out I was until I stepped away from the situation completely. Because um, when you're in it, in a way, you honestly just feel numb to the pain. You know what I mean? So when I was kind of like forced out of it in a sense. Like I forced myself to step back. And this trip kind of came around, which was perfect timing, and it allowed me to press pause on my life. And it was so crazy not having things to do. You know what I mean? Because my schedule used to be just so jam packed. Like I would be doing things from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day. And it was like, okay, like now I have all this free time. Like what am I supposed to do with all this free time? And it really just like made me realize like how like it just had me thinking and like really evaluating my life. And I was like, wow, I'm really, really addicted to stress. And I was like, what is wrong with me? But it's very, very common. And eventually I just like realized how I had to like slow down. And mind you, stress is not something that you can just avoid completely. So over the past year or two, I picked up some habits that really helped me manage my stress a little bit more. So I like picked up box breathing and stuff like that. Box breathing really got me through it, and just like taking micro breaks throughout my day. Like I would literally just like walk outside for 5 minutes, literally drop what I'm doing, walk outside, and just like relax and just like control my breathing. I feel like box breathing is such like it's just like great, honestly, because I started it for a completely different reason. But I just realized how helpful it was for my stress, because it's like you're like forcing your breath to like calm down, and like it's just like forcing yourself out of that fight or flight mode, if that makes sense. And I'm even now I tend to like have a lot on my plate because I can't help myself. Um like but I'm just like monitoring how much I'm putting onto my plate. If I can push something off, I will push it off and just be like, this is not for now, and I'm just gonna focus on A, B, and C, if that makes sense. And I'm also just like picking up like practices for myself that kind of like keep me calm and zen in general. And it's funny because people always make fun of me because like I feel like now I don't let anything really bother me, in a sense. Like usually like I'd be upset with something, and now I'm just like, I don't even care anymore. Like I feel like I just don't want to like get out of my peaceful state. And people sometimes find it funny, and I'm just like, I'm zen. I'm like good, I'm calm. But things that really helped me, especially this past year, was one, box breathing. I know I said it like a bajillion times, but box breathing, box breathing, box breathing. Like literally just like holding in your breath for like a couple seconds and just letting everything go. It just feels like you're just releasing everything, all your stress, just like going with your breath, just out of your body. Um, Another thing that I've also incorporated was spending more time outside in general. Like I like to go outside on my breaks, and it's like obviously winter's coming around, which is going to be like a little tough, but just like getting out of this stressful environment completely. Like I know every environment could be stressful, but just like taking a moment in your day to just step out. And like when I say I take breaks, I take like a million breaks a day. Like I know I'm going to go back and do my work eventually. But if I take like a longer break or a shorter break, I just need time in my day, like periods throughout my whole day, where I'm not worried about like work, school, or anything. So it's like it's like a moment where you have like peace of mind and you have nothing to think about. And then I would go back into this focused state of mind, and then like I'll like break it and then go back, you know what I mean? Because like when you break from a stressful moment, it allows yourself to like breathe and kind of hit a reset button. And then when you go back with a fresh mind, and you can do it all over again, and you can just feel good about it, and you can feel more calm and zen in that way. Another thing is like I feel like I struggled with this a lot, especially like during my late teens, early years of college. But I'm a overthinker. I tend to like overthink about everything, and it's usually like right before I go to bed, I'll be thinking about everything that I have to do tomorrow, which actually like affects my sleep completely. Like I had a hard time getting proper sleep for the longest. And I feel like a way that, like something that helped me was to write my to-do list for the day. And I'm like, I won't forget what I'm doing, so I don't have to think about it because I have it written down. I'll do that the night before, and then like it's like, okay, that's done. You can worry about it tomorrow. And to kind of like quiet down my mind, this is something that my dad taught me actually. He would be like, try to focus on like something like wiggling your toes or like wiggling your fingers, something like that, just to like put your focus on something, and then it kind of like helps you calm down a bit. And another thing is like I would physically imagine myself closing the door to my thoughts. Like it's like all the voices, all the thoughts in my head, just like close the door slowly and then just like breathe, and then I would be put into like this calm state, ready to go to bed. And then I feel like that really just improved my sleep tremendously. Anywho, the highlight of this episode is stress itself is not some monster trying to get you. Stress is natural. Everybody has to experience it. It keeps us alive. However, the main reason why people get like chronically stressed and stuff is because they're not able to take a step back and like reduce the amount of stress that they're experiencing, in a given time. Like you can't be in a fight and flight mode forever. Like it's just not going to work out for you. And we don't want small brains, so it's like no thank you. So it's just like, don't put yourself in this situation where you're just like constantly in a fight or flight mode. You have to like find balance. And I feel like that's just life in general, because too much of anything will be bad for you. Too little of something will be bad for you. You just need to like find your middle ground when it comes to stress, and just find ways to reduce the amount of stress that you're feeling in that day. I feel like every day is a new story, so just take it like literally one step at a time. Anywho, that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you all enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. You can also follow me on Instagram at Rion's POV, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.